Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm gonna be breaking down our first fight for UFC Fight Night 263 Garcia versus Onama. Overall, I think the card has a lot more potential than what I think people are giving it credit for. Now, I know it's an Apex card, and those aren't normally the best, and usually you look at them on paper and think, oh man, there's some real snoozers on this card. I better get my pillow. I'll say this. I think there's some better fights than what some people are expecting. There's going to be some really good prospect fights like Seok Kyung Kyo and Chang Ho Lee, for example. Those two are very interesting Korean prospects. I'm very looking forward to talking about their fights. Most the co-main event, Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Ante Talia. Very interesting for the heavyweight division, and should kind of help clear the path and like what's really going to happen with this division, especially considering last week. But that main event, Steve Garcia versus David Onama, that's going to be a great fucking fight. I think people are sleeping on that fight, really. I know the jokes, right? Who are these two? Why are they headlining a card? Blah, blah, blah. I've heard it all before. But here's my thing about that fight. Gamrot versus Saruki, when they were scheduled to fight, a few years ago back in the Apex, nobody really knew who they were. They were in the top 15 of lightweight, but nobody really knew who they were. They didn't really have that signature win yet. And that turned out to be one of the best fights of that year, and one of the best, like grappling fights, best fights with two high-level grapplers we'd ever seen. I think this fight has that. I think that fight has that potential. Now I'll, get into that more when I get to that fight. But simply put, I think that's a great main event, and it's a really good fight for the featherweight division. See who is of that next level to get to the top 10. But without further ado, let's get to our first fight. In our first fight, Talia Alencar takes on Irina Carnelossi. Alencar is 6-1-1 as a professional, 2-2-1 in her last 5 fights, while Carnelossi is 15-3 as a professional, 3-2 in her last 5 fights. For Alencar, she had fought Stephanie Luciano to a draw when they fought in the Contender Series, but they gave Alencar the contract anyway. Then she beats Rihanna Dos Santos via split decision in her first UFC fight, then loses to Luciano in the rematch, and then in her most recent fight, defeated Vanessa Demopoulos, which overall, considering how old Alencar is, like 35, and she only has 8 pro fights, I was like, that was a pretty good win for her. Meanwhile, for Carnelossi, understand this, from her last fight to her most recent fight, there's huge gaps in between. In her latest fight, she fought Angela Hill basically 6 years ago and lost via doctor stoppage. Then goes on a 2-fight win streak, TKOing Nai Leong about roughly 4 years ago, and then submits Estela Nunes via rear naked choke. Then in her most recent loss, she loses to Lupita Godinez. Now this is about 3.5 years ago. And then about a year and a half ago, her last win was to Pierre Rodriguez, where Rodriguez headbutted her while she was grounded and got DQ'd. So the fight, all 5 of these fights, this is roughly in the span of 6 months in her latest to a year and a half. So not much activity on the side of Carnelossi. Now, looking at their overall skills, this is a striker versus grappler matchup, clear as day. Alencar, very well decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner, multiple-time world champion in the gi and no-gi, and uses her grappling very well. Now, her striking is still a work in progress, but I think she's done pretty good at least building it, or having building blocks to the striking game, setting up a jab, using leg kicks, starting to string together combinations. But of course, her bread and butter is her grappling. Being able to control Vanessa Demopoulos in her last fight, I thought was pretty impressive for a simple reason. Vanessa Demopoulos is not that easy to control, and Demopoulos oftentimes has pretty good get-up ability. She doesn't have the best takedown defense, and it's not by a long shot, but overall has a pretty good ability to get up, and Alencar kind of did whatever she wanted on the ground, for the most part. Or she did have some trouble on the feet, but nothing she really can handle. For Carnelossi, she's going to be, I think, the overall better striker and has the bit more impact with her striking, especially in the clinch too, with that Muay Thai background of hers. What's interesting though is that I wouldn't say she's a complete novice on the ground. Now, granted, it I'm basing this off of a submission win over Estela Nunes, whose ground game is pretty awful. So that does say a lot. But and also, for example, Nai Leong is not good on the ground and she gasses within a round. But I give Carnelline this. When she has an opponent hurt, she's very good at following it up to the ground and either finding the finish, whether that's using ground and pound or sinking in a submission. But if she takes on higher level wrestlers or girls with, it's just simply fighters with a better ground game, she loses every time. For example, Lupito Godinez, granted, high level wrestler, but just took kind of Carnelossi down at will. And then Piera Rodriguez was beating her both on the feet and on the ground until, low fight IQ move just headbutts her. But make no mistake, Piera Rodriguez was winning that fight. Make no mistake about it. Overall, the question just becomes, can Ardeline just be able to bypass the reach of Carnelossi and take her down? And then if she gets taken, and then if she can take down Carnelossi, then I think it's her fight to win. Because you look at the physical stats, Alencar, 5'1", 58.5 inches of reach. Carnelossi, now she's not going to be that much bigger, only 5'2", so about an inch. But the reach is interesting, right? 61.5 inches of reach. So she's roughly going to have a 3-inch reach advantage over Alencar. But here's the thing. Demopoulos, bigger than her. Luciano, bigger than her. And Dos Santos, roughly the same size as Ardeline, who is bigger than her. So Alencar's not a stranger to these types of matchups where she has to fight a bigger opponent than her and have to bypass that striking and that reach in order to go for her takedowns and then go for her and then subsequent that with her grappling. So honestly, with this type of assignment, I think this is Alencar's fight to win. Odds wise for the fight, she's a minus 250 to the plus 200. Carnelossi. That makes sense. Now I know that there's a possibility of Carnelossi as an underdog winning. Like I said, she is still the bigger fighter, and her striking should be better. She does have some more pop in her hands, and I could see her making Alencar pay with some intercepting knees. But overall, I gotta go with Talia Alencar to win. I just think her overall grappling is just too much of a safety value, I guess you would call it, or too much of a path to victory to ignore. Simply is, Carnelossi has shown bad grappling and bad takedown defense in the past, and that's far too much of a liability for me to safely think, too much to pick that I think, she'll still stuff down all of Alencar's takedowns and make her pay on the feet. I can't think that. I truly just think Carnelossi just does not have good wrestling defense. And I think Alencar is going to use that to her advantage, take her to the ground, and I think win a grapple-heavy decision. I could see a submission. Alencar is a well-traveled BJJ veteran. And like I said, multiple champion in the gi and no gi. So a submission is live in this fight. But overall, I think Alencar by decision is probably the way to go. So again, for my official prediction, I'm picking Talia Alencar, and I'm picking her via unanimous decision. But that being said, that's been my breakdown of the fight. If you like the video, comment and subscribe. Next up, we'll have Phil Rowe versus Seok Hyung Kyo. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank y'all for listening. Take care now.